Okay, now that you're familiar with those two chords, E minor and D6/9, we can move on to some more chords. This is where it starts to get a bit more interesting. But before we do that, just in case you hadn't already figured it out, those two chords, the E minor and the D6/9, will allow you to play a very simple song called A Horse With No Name by a band called America. And I'll just play a little bit for you with the correct rhythm and at a kind of slightly faster speed, just so you can hear it. And then I'll slow it down so that you can hear that is the same two chords that you're playing. So we have our song like this. Okay, and a little bit slower. So you have the basic two chords for that song. Now obviously we'll come back and look at the more complicated rhythm a little bit later. Now we want to move on to learning some new chords. We're going to learn 3 new chords in this lesson. So we're going to start off with the D chord. So you can see the diagram there on the screen. We want your first finger in the 2nd fret on the 3rd string. We want your second finger on the 2nd fret on the 1st string, and we want your 3rd finger, 3rd fret, 2nd string. Okay, so I'll just go through that again. 1st finger, 2nd fret on 3rd string, 2nd finger, 2nd fret on the 1st string, and your 3rd finger, 3rd fret on the 2nd string. Okay, so again, remember, keep those knuckles bent, try and keep your wrist straight, and keep your palm and your bit of clearance there from your 1st finger. Now, once you have all those fingers in position, again, try and keep the fingers, especially this one, the 3rd finger and the 2nd finger, close to the frets. If that's not possible, we're saying as close as possible. So get that one nice and close to the fret, and that should allow you to get that one at least towards the middle of the fret. Try and stretch it over though, close to the 3rd fret if you can. So once they're in position, we're going to play, and we're going to start this chord from the 4th string, the D string. So you can see in the chord diagram there are 2 X's over both of these strings, so it means we don't want to strum those strings when we're strumming this chord. Now that can be a little bit difficult at the beginning, so we're not going to worry about it too much. But you definitely need to be aware of it, and you need to know that those 2 strings are not part of this chord. So we want to start from the D string. That's your D chord. Okay. And as before, check each string. Make sure each one is ringing out nice and clear, and then you've got your nice clear D chord. Okay. Now, the next chord we want is called C add 9. So it's a type of C chord with an extra note added into it. Now we want to try and keep this finger, the 3rd finger, in the same position. It's going to stay in the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, and then we want 1st finger in the 2nd fret on the 4th string, and then we want our 2nd finger in here, 3rd fret, so directly above the other one, and that's going into the 5th string. So again, tips of the fingers, knuckles bent, and this time the X is over the 6th string. So we don't want to play that string, so we're going to start from here. And again, like I just did, so you check each string individually, make sure there's no rattles, no buzzes, no muted notes. make sure everything is nice and clear. And that's your C add 9 chord. Now, the last one for this lesson is going to be our G chord. So again, I'm going to try and leave third finger there in the third fret on the second string. We want first finger, second fret, fifth string, second finger, third fret, sixth string, and then we want to try and squash in the little finger here and here in the third fret on the first string. Okay, now, so again, trying to get, especially the first finger here nice and close to the fret, try and get that one nice and close as well. In fact, most of them should be able to get pretty close to the frets. And this one, no X's over any of the strings, so play all the strings. And again, just go back, check each one individually. Make sure there's no problems, and give it a good strum. Okay, that's your G chord. Now, a lot of students, when they come to my class and if they've already played the guitar, they might say, well, I learned G a different way with just 3 fingers, and this way is perfectly fine also. Still a G chord, both of them are G chord, they still have the same name, even though we are using 4 fingers for one and only 3 for the other. They're both G chords, they're both correct as G chords. It's not that one is better than the other, they just sound slightly different. Again, like we spoke about before with E minor, saying you could use fingers 1 and 2 or fingers 2 and 3. It depends on the circumstance. So basically the same here. So whichever version of G we decide to use will depend on the circumstance. So for this song, we're using D. We can have that finger in the third fret. We're using C add 9. That finger is still in the third fret on the second string. If we use this version of G, we can leave that finger in the third fret, and we need to get from G and go back to D, so again we can leave that third finger in the third fret on the second string. And this just means we can think of this finger like a landmark for the other fingers. That's going to be in that position, and that will allow us to get the other fingers into position around it. Otherwise, it would mean if we're on C add 9 and we want to go to the other version of G, we have to move all the fingers. So this way we can have one finger in position all of the time. And that can make changing a little bit easier. Now, I know that some people do find it difficult to leave the finger in position. But I think if you can practice it, bear with it, give it a little bit of time, if you can manage to keep that finger in position, it will help to facilitate those chord changes. It'll make them so much easier. These chords happen quite a lot together, especially D and G. They are in hundreds of songs, so we really need to be able to change between them very easily. We're going to need them so much. So, like we did before, have your fingers on the chord. You don't have to press in hard. And then change to the next chord. So lift your fingers off at the same time, get them into position, and then put them down together. Now we're going to go from the C add 9 back to the D, even though we're not going to use that chord change in the song we're going to look at, but it's always good to practice your chord changes going both directions, because you will need to be able to do that at some other stage. So once you're okay with going from D to C add 9, then we can practice going from C add 9 to G. Again, the same idea, lift your fingers off together, get them into position, and put them down at the same time. Okay. If the little fingers give me some trouble, don't worry about it. It's the weakest finger on your weaker hand. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to that. I would suggest for the moment that we're going to give these fingers here, fingers 1 and 2, priority, and then the little finger can follow afterwards. Now, in reality, we want to have all the fingers in position at the same time. But for now, give these fingers priority and let this one follow if you need to. Once you have that chord change ready and you're happy with that, you're able to move between them nice and easily, then we're going to change from G going back to D. So our G, lift those 3 fingers off, get these 2 fingers ready and press them down together. So G going back to D. And again, as always, make sure you go backwards and forwards nice and slowly. Get everything correct first of all, and then you can start to work on getting it a little bit faster. Okay, now once we're happy with that, we're going to put those 3 chords together and then we'll start making it sound a little bit like a song.